So this morning I'm going to go over a couple of different subjects, once again about this phenomenon of the bride of Christ, as they say, where it came from and how it got twisted, and also a deception that I found when I was going over it last week. I don't know if I got it or if I missed it. I think I got it, but I didn't focus on it enough, so I'm going to focus on it today. So it's going to be about the real bride of Messiah and the timeline of when anti-Messiah showed up as per the writings of Paul in, I believe it's 1 Thessalonians 5 and verse 3, and also the writings of John in, is it 1 John 4? I can't remember, but I'll go into that, and timelines are provided. I noticed that the translators are very sneaky to fudge and do wordplay, and I'll go over that and expose it. So I'm going to first start off with the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Now, this is straight from the Vatican now, folks. And they're saying the church is the bride, as they say, of Christ or Christos. Now, where do they get that from? Well, let's first, I'm going to point out something about this catechism. Okay? Sometimes you have to look at the whole forest and not just each tree. I'll explain. But first, in 796 of the Catechism, when they say the church is the bride of Christos, the unity of Christos and the church, head and members of one body, also implies the distinction of the two within a personal relationship. And there you have, folks, this misnomer about a personal relationship as we will get into as we go further along here. This aspect is often expressed by the image of the bridegroom and the bride. The theme of Christos as bridegroom of the church was prepared for by the prophets and announced by John the Baptist. Was it? Was it? Let's see. Let's use their own words and find out. Well, it says here, as he says, the Lord referred to himself as the bridegroom. The apostle speaks of the whole church and of each of the faithful members of his body as a bride betrothed to Christos, the Lord, as they say, so as to become but one spirit with him. Where he quotes this section out of, I don't know. Where it says the church is a spotless bride of the spotless Lamb. It says Christos loved the church and gave himself for her so that he might sanctify her. He has joined with her himself in an everlasting covenant. Oh, now they mention everlasting covenant. And never stops caring for her as his own body. Now, there's something missing here. Israel is missing. Yet the Catechism quotes 1 Peter about a chosen race. I'll continue. It says, this the whole Christos, head and body, formed from many, whether the head or members speak, it is Christos who speaks as he speaks in his role as a head. And notice how they use Latin words here, folks. And in his role as body, What does this mean? The two will become one flesh. This is a great mystery, and I'm applying it to Christos and the church. And the Lord himself says in the gospel, so they are no longer two but one flesh. They are in fact two different persons, yet they are one conjugal union. As head he calls himself the bridegroom, as body he calls himself the bride. He's not a bride. He's the bridegroom. Something else is the bride of Messiah. Somewhere down in here. All right. So when you go down in here, in brief, at 803, he quotes 1 Peter 2, verse 9, you are a chosen race, the royal priesthood, a holy nation, Jehovah's own people. Who was Peter talking to? He was talking to the Hebrews, because Peter was the apostle to the Hebrews, just like all the other 11 apostles were, and Paul was the apostle to the Gentiles. All right. So let's go first to the words of Paul, and let's see what Paul said. Okay? To the Corinthians, 2 Corinthians 11, verse 1, oh, that you would bear with me in a little folly. What's he saying? What is he saying? Is he saying that what he is about to say is foolishness? Not exactly. What he is doing here is he's using something simplistic. Using simplistic language so they can understand what he's talking about here. It is unfortunate that he had to do this. He says, for I am jealous of you with a pious jealousy. I have betrothed you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Messiah. All right? Now, when Paul was writing this, I would say it was either around 40 CE or before, somewhere around there. All right. But he says, I fear lest somehow, like the serpent deceived Eve by his craftiness, so your minds might already be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Messiah. What? In the same breath, he says this. In the same breath. Now, if he is fearing this, I ask a question. Does this little bit of folly that he's asking them to bear with them, does it apply to them when he's trying to rein them back in? He's saying, look, folks, there is one bridegroom, and you are betrothed to him. In a figure of speech, he says he's using a little folly. Folks, let's go Strong's Concordance. Foolishness. Please bear with, on the other hand, bear with me. He's having to use simplistic terms because they were turning away from the Messiah. To what? A different one. A false one. What are you doing, Corinthians? But I fear, lest by any means, like the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, cleverness, craftiness. So your minds should be corrupted away from the simplicity that is not Christos, Messiah, or Moshiach. For if somebody comes preaching a different Yehoshua, remember yesterday, what did I say? Let me point this out yet again. See what the translators did. Right here you said, you see, Jesus or Joshua, the name of the Messiah. No, folks. Once again, we'll go to the book of Joshua and we're going to find out what his name is. Okay. And as yesterday I pointed out, all right, let me go to Strong's Concordance. All right. It's not Joshua. You can see it right here. It's not Joshua. It's Yehoshua. Yehoshua. What does this name mean? It doesn't mean the Lord is salvation. It means Jehovah is salvation. Jesus does not mean Jehovah is salvation. And Hashua, which is how they derive Joshua, just means salvation. Okay. Now, for he that comes preaching another Yehoshua, and then name him Jesus, perhaps, whom we have not preached. So what he is warning them, he's saying, you are running off to a different Messiah. And when he's pointing out, he has betrothed them to one husband. What he is implying here is, if you go and chase after another bridegroom and another husband, you are committing fornication. And he is telling them that this is what's happening in a simplistic way. Or if you receive another spirit, which you have not received, or any different gospel, which you have not accepted, you might even bear with him. He's saying, your attitude is, you would tolerate this. For I suppose I am not a whit behind the very chiefest of apostles. He is not behind, not a single whit behind Peter. But though I be rude in speech, I am not rude in knowledge. But we have been thoroughly made manifest among you in all things. All right. That's what he's warning them about. Okay. As I've gone, okay, so we go back to the catechism here. So those of you who know the catechism, I ask you a rhetorical question, because I already know the answer. Is there anywhere in the catechism of the Catholic Church that declares that the New Jerusalem coming down out of heaven on Mount Zion is the bride of the Messiah. Is there anywhere in the Catholic Catechism? Hmm? Now, if King Herod Agrippa, when the Lebanese, the people of Tyre and Zidon, bowed down to him and started yelling, "It is the voice of a God and not a man," he said nothing and did nothing. He committed a sin of omission, and he got killed for it. The angel of Jehovah went and killed him with worms. This catechism of the Catholic Church is clever and deceitful, and it commits a brazen and blatant sin of omission. I'll show you what it omits. It omits Revelation 21. Verse 1, "And I saw a new heaven and a new earth." The word is not heaven, it's sky, atmosphere. All right, let's go to Strong's Concordance. Let's get this straight. See this? The visible heavens, the atmosphere, the sky, the starry heavens, and it's the atmosphere. All right? The sky. The first sky and the first Eretz were passed away, and there was no more sea. What's he referring to? The Mediterranean Sea. Why is that? I'll explain in just a minute. "And I, Yohanan, saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down, down, down." To where? Rome? Huh? No. To Jerusalem. Right? Out of the sky, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Why is the Catechism omitting this? Now here in verse 9, "And there came unto me one of the seven angels which had the seven vials full of the seven last plagues, and talked with me, saying, Come here, and I will show you the bride, the Lamb's wife. And he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me that great city, the holy Rome." Or is it the holy Moscow? Or is it the holy Salt Lake City? Or is it the holy Constantinople? The holy Babylon? No! The holy Jerusalem, descending, 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 coming down out of the sky from Jehovah, having the glory of Jehovah, and her light was like unto a stone most precious, even as jasper stone, even as crystal, and had a wall great and high, and it had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and the names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the church. 12 tribes of the children of Israel. No, there is no mistranslation here, folks. And so, when they quote Peter in 1 Peter, Peter was talking to the Hebrews, because He was an apostle to the Hebrews. Verse 1, wherefore, laying aside all malice and all guilt and hypocrisy and envy and all evil speaking, as newborn babes, desiring the sincere milk of the word, that you may grow thereby, you have tasted of the Messiah is graciousness. To whom? Coming. A living stone. You know, yesterday I did a video. And I talked about this stone that was cut out of a mountain. That mountain is Mount Zion, not Rome. Disallowed indeed of men, but chosen of Jehovah and precious. So you also, as lively stones, are built up a spiritual house, a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to Jehovah by Yehoshua Messiah. Peter was not speaking in Greek to the Hebrews. He was speaking Hebrew to the Hebrews. And the name given to Messiah was not Jesus Christ, it was Yehoshua Moshiach. Or properly, Yehoshua HaMashiach. And indeed, where did Peter get this from? Isaiah 28 and verse 14. I think. Or not. Oh, the cornerstone in Zion, where that was rejected. Right? We're in verse 16. Therefore, thus saith Jehovah Elohim, behold, I lay in Zion a foundation, a stone, a tested stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. He that believes shall not make haste. And it says right here, in verse 18, your covenant with death will be annulled, and your agreement with hell shall not stand. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, then you shall be trodden down by it. So, it was. And this is where Peter got the information concerning the stone of stumbling and the rock of offense. This was indeed about the children of Israel. But look what else he starts saying. He flips it around. He says, verse 9, but you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. It's actually a holy race. You are, let's see, let me go to Strong's Concordance. You are a chosen family, race. You are a chosen race. Genos, race, chosen race. He's talking to the Hebrews. A royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, which you should show forth the praises of him who have called you out of darkness into his marvelous light, which in times past you were not a people, but are now the people of Jehovah, which have not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. All right. Who's he talking to? I'll get to that in just a second. Dearly beloved, I beseech you as strangers and pilgrims in foreign lands, abstain from fleshly lusts which war against the soul, having your conversation honest among the Gentiles. Yes, he's speaking to Jews, folks. That whereas they speak against you as evildoers, yes, they do blood libels and all that sort of thing, that by your good works, which they shall behold, they will glorify Jehovah in the day of visitation. Come on, folks. Let's not be ignorant. All right. A peculiar people, right? Where have we read this before? Deuteronomy 14. Verse 2, for you are a holy people to Jehovah your Elohim, and Jehovah has chosen you to be a people for himself, a special treasure above all peoples who are on the face of the earth. Right? Look, Revelation 21, again I say, the entire chapter of Revelation 21 is missing from the catechism. Why? Because they don't agree with it. Verse 12, and it had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and the names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. This is the bride of Messiah. So how is it that Paul was talking about the Gentiles being the bride? He said, would to Jehovah you could bear with me a little in my folly. He was speaking to them in simplicity because they were already running away from the Messiah and seeking after a different one because of their racial prejudice against Israel's true Messiah, folks. They didn't want to call a man by the name of Yehoshua their Messiah. As we find out, they wanted to call him by a different name. They wanted to have a different gospel that excludes the people of Israel. It's right there in 2 Corinthians 11 if you care to look. I am jealous over you with a pious or with a fatherly jealousy, for I have espoused you, joined you in marriage to one husband. How? Well, the only way the Gentiles can come into the New Jerusalem, which is the bride of Messiah, they have to go through one of the 12 gates, which means, just as it is written in Romans 11, they have to be grafted in among the branches as people of Israel. But their racial hatred against the people of Israel has caused them to seek another Messiah with a different gospel, exactly as he says here, as I present to you as a chaste virgin to Messiah, but I fear lest by any means, just like the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your minds should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Messiah, for he that comes preaches another Yehoshua, and they will call him another name too, Jesus, whom we have not preached. Or if you receive another spirit, another word which means doctrine. Pneuma is that which proceeds out of your mouth. Breath. Words. Which you have not received, or another different gospel. Any gospel that does not declare the salvation of Israel as per Romans 11, verse 26, that gospel is a different gospel. That gospel is a false gospel, which you have not accepted. He's afraid that you're going to be okay with that. You're going to bear well with that person. He was right. Paul was right. He knew it was going to happen. He knew it. So, once again, I want to go to 1 John. Well, actually, let's go to 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 3. 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 3. I'm sorry. And I've got so many things up here that I need to get rid of some of these here. Oh, I think I can get rid of this. What is this? Paul's writings to Thessalonica. Okay. Now, it is commonly believed among preachers that, we'll just read part of this right here, Paul's writings to Thessalonica. D.A. Carson and Douglas Moo provide potential date ranges. Oh boy. We can go far or near with this. What this means is they have no idea. No idea at all. For Paul's writings of the first letter to the Thessalonians. So 1 Thessalonians would be his first letter to the Thessalonians, right? They say from AD 40 to approximately AD 51. However, the evidence regarding Paul's chronology in Acts appear to support a more likely date of approximately AD 50 during Paul's stay in Corinth. Furthermore, the usual sequence of letters to the Thessalonians appear correct, suggesting a date for his second letter soon after Paul's first letter, such as AD 50 or early 51, while Paul was still in Corinth. Now, they don't know. They absolutely do not know. They say it could go all the way. This one right here. This date right here is one you need to pay special attention to. Now let's read. Oh, this is 2 Thessalonians. I don't know why I kept saying 1 Thessalonians. 2 Thessalonians. Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Moshiach, Yehoshua Messiah, our Master Yehoshua Messiah, and by our gathering together unto him, that you be not soon shaken in mind, nor be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter from us, as the day of Messiah is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first. And as you notice, in every single thesis, writing, sermon that these preachers give, they misinterpret this falling away every single time. You must understand first, folks, that Paul, since he pointed out to the Romans that the Gentiles must be grafted in among the branches of Israel and become like them, to become of their race, essentially, that this falling away he's talking about is not exactly what the preachers tell you. Falling away, apostasia, defection, apostasy, revolt, or should be either defection or revolt. A revolt is a rebellion. Now, a rebellion did occur, and it occurred, folks, when this incident happened. Caligula, the one who became possessed by the devil. When several kind kings came to Rome to pay their respects to him and argued about their nobility of descent, he allegedly cried out in the Homeric line, "Let there be one Lord, one King," in 40. That's right, 40. Caligula began implementing very controversial policies that introduced religion into his political role. Caligula began appearing in public dressed as various gods and demigods such as Hercules, Mercury, Venus, and Apollyon the Destroyer. Reportedly, he began referring to himself as a god when meeting with politicians and referred to himself as Jupiter, aka Zeus, aka Satan himself. That's when Satan entered into the body of the Emperor of Rome. That's when Satan took his seat on the throne in Rome. A sacred precinct was set apart for his worship at Miletus in the province of Asia, and 2 temples were erected for worship of him in Rome. The temple of Castor and Pollux on the Forum was linked directly to the imperial residence at the Palatine and dedicated to Caligula. He would appear there on occasion and present himself as a god to the public. Caligula had the heads removed of various statues of gods across Rome and replaced them with his own possession by Satan himself. And it is said that he wished to be worshipped as Neos Helios, the sun god, the one that Christianity worships today on Sunday. Sol Invictus, look it up. Look up Sol Invictus and Constantine. Indeed, he was represented as a sun god on Egyptian coins. And of course, the sun god the Jews know as Baal. And they would have no part of it. You see, before Caligula, the Jewish hierarchy embraced the Romans. They did. In fact, when Yehoshua, Messiah, came, they rejected him over, or they placed the Roman kingdom over him. That's why they rejected him. That's why he became a stone of offense. Because they had their allegiance to Rome. Why? Because Rome kept their the powers that be in Jerusalem in power. That's the reason. They swore their allegiance to Rome. So, I will continue. All this was happening beginning in 40. Caligula needed to quell several riots and conspiracies in eastern territories during his reign. Aiding him in his actions was his good friend, Herod Agrippa. You know, the one who was killed with worms because he fell into the same trap as Caligula, who became governor of the territories of Batanea and Trachonitis after Caligula became emperor in 37. So we're already at 40 and past 40 CE. Caligula did not trust the prefect of Egypt. I hear Flaccus had been loyal to Tiberius and had conspired against Caligula's mother and had connections with Egyptian separatists. In 38, Caligula sent Agrippa to Alexandria unannounced to check on Flaccus. According to Philo, the visits were met with jeers from the Greek population who saw Agrippa as the king of the Jews. Flaccus tried to placate both the Greek population and Caligula by having the statues of the emperor placed in Jewish synagogues. As a result, riots broke out in the city. Caligula responded by removing Flaccus from his position and executed him. He did not authorize this at that time. He did not authorize him to make statues of Caligula and put it in synagogues. In 39, Agrippa accused Herod Antipas, the Tetrarch of Galilee and Perea, of planning a rebellion against Roman rule. You see, the king of Judea, his heart and soul was dedicated to the Roman emperor. Of planning a rebellion against Roman rule with the help of Parthia. Parthia was Persia. Herod Antipas confessed and Caligula exiled him. Agrippa was rewarded with Herod Antipas's territories. You see? But then this incident, it was already too late. Riots again erupted in Alexandria in 40. Notice the timeline. 40. Between Jews and Greeks. Jews were accused of not honoring the emperor, despite occurred in the city, or disputes occurred in the city of Jamnia. Jews were angered by the erection of a clay altar and destroyed it. In response, this is where Caligula turned against the Jews. This is where he became the man of sin. So the Greeks started the riots first against the Jews. And then when Caligula ordered the erection of a statue of himself in the Jewish temple of Jerusalem, a demand in conflict with Jewish monotheism. In this context, Philo wrote that Caligula regarded the Jews with most especial suspicion, as they were the only persons who cherished wishes opposed to his. Okay. Now we can go back to this. For that day shall not come except there become a defection. The Jews defected against Rome at this point. When? In all actuality, it was right about the time that Paul wrote this letter, or Paul wrote this letter just before it happened. But they try to tell you Look at the cleverness. Look at the deception. They try to say it happened around 50 AD. Why? Because they don't want to admit that this incident that they claim is going to happen in the future, a great falling away, they don't want to admit that it happened in AD 40, right about the time when Paul was really writing to the Thessalonians. This is clever. It's also deception, folks. Because clearly, according to what we read in 2 Thessalonians 2, Caligula, he may have been in power, but Paul was warning them. It's not going to happen, but except this particular event happened first. What event? That man of sin be revealed, the son of destruction. All right, stop right here for a second. I don't need this one anymore. Look, Leon, the son of destruction. Revelation 9 and verse 11. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the, not bottomless pit, but the abyss, abyssos. It is a Greek word for the Mediterranean Sea. Look at Rome. There it is, right in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. Get your map and look at it. Whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue has his name Apollyon or Apollo, destroyer. Destroyer. Okay. 2 Thessalonians, son of destruction. Destroyer and destruction. Same word. Who did Caligula want himself to appear to be? Where is this? Is it way up here? Let me find it. Please bear with me. Claims of divinity. All right. When several client kings came to Rome to pay their respects to him and argued about their nobility of descent, he allegedly cried in the Homeric line, "Let there be one Lord, one King," in 40. Caligula began implementing very controversial policies that introduced religion into his political role. Caligula began appearing in public dressed as various gods, such as demigods and demigods, such as Hercules, Mercury, Venus, and Apollyon. It is also said that he wished to be worshipped as Neos, Helios, the new sun, the sun god, the Sol Invictus, you see. Indeed, he was represented as a sun god in the Egyptian coins, but he wanted to be represented as also Apollyon. Now, this is important because the 15th Legion, look, I think it's the 15th Legion. Let me go look. 15th Legion of Rome. Yes. 15th Legion of Rome, Apollinaris. what is so interesting about this particular Roman legion? They have as their god Apollyon. They have a king over them. His name is Apollyon. Apollyon is a destroyer. Okay? This was, this legion was already out and about at 6 CE. Okay? And it was in, let's see, I'll go down here and see if I can find. Let me do this. Roman 15th Legion sack Jerusalem. Which Roman's legion destroyed Jerusalem? Let me see. I might not be able to find this here. I'm hoping I can find it. Okay. Now, the siege of Jerusalem, more riots started at 66, and then obviously right around 40 CE is when the Jews turned against Rome. They turned against Rome because of what? Caligula, a man who wanted to be Apollyon, and other false gods, including Zeus. So Titus began his siege a few days before Passover on April the 14th, surrounding the city with 3 legions. The fifth Legion, Macedonia. The 12th Legion, Fulminata. And what do we have here but the 15th Legion, Apollinaris, on the western side. And on the 4th Fraternis, or not, which would be the 10th Legion, on the Mount of Olives to the east. So as you see, let's look at Apollinaris. I think I just did. Yes, we just did. So that legion came in from the west, came in, therefore, from the abyss, from the Mediterranean Sea. Destroyer. After Caligula, nothing was ever the same between Rome and the Jews. And this is what Paul was talking about here. He was talking about Caligula, the son of perdition, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called a god. That was Caligula. Or that is worshipped, so that he as a god, he chooses to sit down or place his graven image in the temple of Jehovah, showing himself that he is the God. Remember, don't you remember that what was with you? I told you these things, and now you know what withholds that he might be revealed in his time, because the mystery of iniquity does already work. Oh, guess what? He's saying, look, it's already happening. He is pointing out what Caligula is doing right at that time. It's already happening, already at work. Only he who now lets will let until he be taken out of the way, and then that wicked one be revealed. The one who sits on the throne in Rome. Who sits on that throne today? Who is the one who calls himself Father? Anyone take a guess? The guy who calls himself Father. Or in the Latin language, Pope. He sits on the same throne. He's possessed with the same devil, whom the Messiah will consume with the spirit out of his mouth and shall destroy with the brightness of coming. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and all deceivable and unrighteousness in them that perish. All the followers of not only him, but the words in his catechism. Every single religion who calls himself Christian follow the lie, the deception of the catechism that claim that the church is the bride, when in fact we know that the New Jerusalem coming out of heaven, coming out of the sky, with 12 gates each for each of the tribes of Israel, is the bride. And they misused, misinterpreted the words of Paul in such a way so that they could cleverly and deceitfully convince you to believe that the church in Rome, or that the church in Salt Lake City, or that the church in Constantinople, or that the church, the First Baptist Church in your own town, is somehow the bride of the Messiah. The only way to become a part of the bride of Messiah, you have to be a Zionist. You must have as your holy city Mount Zion. You must be a Zionist. If you are not a Zionist, then you reject everything. You reject the gospel if you're not a Zionist. How? Romans 11. I say then, hath Jehovah cast away his people? Jehovah forbid, because I'm an also Israelite of Abraham, the tribe of Benjamin. Yeah, one of the gates will be named Benjamin. He has not cast away his people, which he foreknew. Don't you know that the scripture says about Eliyahu, who made intercessions to Jehovah against Israel, saying, they have killed your prophets and digged down your altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. But what did the answer come from Jehovah to him? I reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. Who is Baal? The sun god. Even so, then it is at this present time also there is a remnant according to the election of grace. Okay, so it says that the nation of Israel has not at this point in time obtained what it seeks, but the election has obtained it. Oh, but wait, so look here at ingrafting. I say then, had they stumbled that they should fall, Jehovah forbid, rather through their fall salvation is come to the Gentiles, for the provoked Israel to jealousy. Now if the fall of them be the riches of the world, or the Gentile world, Western civilization, and the diminishing of them the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? Well, currently the church, as they say, does not believe in the fullness of Israel. They believe that Israel must be grafted into the church. But what does Paul say? For I speak to you Gentiles, inasmuch as I am the apostle of the Gentiles, I magnify my office. if by any means I may provoke to emulation them which are my flesh, and might save some of them. For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the Gentile world, what shall the receiving of them be, the Israelites, be but life from the dead? Why? Because if the first fruit, the Messiah, is holy, so is Israel, the lump. And if the root of Jesse is holy, then so are all 12 branches. Now, if some of the branches are broken off, and you being a wild olive tree were grafted in, and them thrown out? No, it says among them, and with them, alongside them, partaking jointly with them of the root and fatness of the olive tree. Do not boast against the branches. How many times have I gone over this? What the Gentiles have done, boasted against the branches. But if you boast, you bear not the root, but the root bears you. In other words, if you boast, you're boasting against the root, the Messiah. You will say then the branches were broken, that I might be grafted in. Well, because of unbelief they were broken off, and you stand by faith. Be not high-minded, but fear. For if Jehovah did not spare the natural branches, take heed lest he also spare not you either. Look, therefore, the goodness and the severity of Jehovah on them which fell severity, but toward you goodness, if you continue in his goodness. And as Paul warned the Corinthians, he said at that time they were already tolerating a different gospel, a different Messiah with a different name. Already in Paul's lifetime, they were not continuing in his goodness. Otherwise you also shall be cut off. And they will abide, not if they abide, because look, wait a minute here. This, not if, the iname, or the ianme word, means before they abide, not still in unbelief. Before, just exactly as is written in Ezekiel 39. Before they start believing, he is going to graft them in again. Not if, because if you read in Deuteronomy 30, it's not if. It says, Moses says, after the blessings and the cursings, that the people of Israel are going to remember. They're going to come back. And Jehovah is going to circumcise their hearts. And they're going to love Jehovah, their Elohim. They're going to do this. He's going to this is the new covenant. It's not an if. He's going to do this before they believe, just like it is written in Ezekiel. Let's just go there. Let's go to Ezekiel 39. Don't believe it? Oh, what is it? NASB. I want to go to King James. From that day and forward, where is it at? I always can't find it. All right, it's right here. This is after the Ezekiel 38-39 war. It says, verse 21, and I will set my glory among the Gentiles, and all the Gentiles shall see the judgment that I have executed in my hand that I have laid upon them. And so the house of Israel shall know that I am Jehovah their Elohim from that day and forward. So, now that we have context for Romans 11 and do not fear, take fear. And they also, before they, look, he says before again. Bef before they are still in unbelief, they're going to be grafted in. Do you see what this says? Not if, it's before. Before they abide, before unbelief, or while they were still in unbelief. They will be grafted in, for he is able to graft them in again. We just read in Ezekiel 39 that from that day and forward, when he grafts them back in, after he grafts them back in, and he saves them from the surrounding nations, and he sees what Jehovah has done to the nations who try to wipe them out once and for all, they're going to believe. They're going to believe. He is able to graft them in again, because if you were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these be, who are the natural branches, be into their own tree? For I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits, Romans, that blindness in part has happened to Israel. Yes, you put up a statue of synagogue with the blinder around her head. You mock her. Yes, you do. You mock her with this picture. I'll show you. I have to do it over and over again. Over and over again. I must do this. Come on. What's going on here? And ecclesia and synagogue. I gotta find, here it is, right here. If I can just, all right, let's see if I can do this. Right there. See that? This is ecclesia, the Gentile congregation, mocking and ridiculing synagogue. She has a blinder on. That Jezebel in Thyatira, that's this one. That's her. This is what is written about Babylon the Great, which is Rome. She has a crown on her head, scepter in her hand, and a golden cup full of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And she mocks poor synagogue, the Jews, who has a blinder around her eyes. Paul said to the Romans, don't you dare. But did the Romans listen? No. The Romans did not listen to Paul. For I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, verse 25, lest you should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part has happened unto Israel until. Well, they don't believe the until part. That's the reason why they never quote this scripture. Until the fullness, the filling up, an hourglass fills up, and when the hourglass fills up, the time is ended of the Gentiles be come in. And so, all Israel, every, oh look here folks, the churches don't believe this. Every Israelite shall be saved. As it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away unholiness from Jacob, because this is my covenant. What covenant? The covenant that he talked about in Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 34. The new covenant. Concerning the gospel, they, Israel, might be enemies for your sakes, because the gospel did say this. Here's what it says. Here's the gospel. It is not good enough for you to save all of the tribes of Israel. That's not enough. But you be a light to the Gentiles, that you may be my salvation to the ends of the earth. That is the gospel. If you remove one, you disannul the whole gospel. Well, what's happened here is the Romans have removed, the Roman churches, plural. It's not just the Catholic Church, folks. It's all of them who have the doctrine of the catechism. That's every one of them. But concerning the election, concerning the selection, they are the beloved elect for the patriarchs' sakes. Because the gifts and calling of Jehovah cannot be changed. No. And since the gifts and the callings of Jehovah cannot be changed, every Israelite shall be saved. Oh, I know. I know. You Gentiles, you just can't swallow that. Why? Because you are filled with the pride of the devil. There is no humility in you. You are unable to swallow that truth. Now, before you go and stick your finger at me and call me a nasty Jewish name or whatever you want to call me, let me remind you that according to FTDNA, I am 95% Gentile. Okay, it says I'm 5% Jewish. And of course, another GED match says that I am 85% Gentile. I'm still majority Gentile, okay? Now, if I can humble myself and confess this, now let me rephrase that. How is it that the Gentiles are unable to humble themselves and confess that all Israel are going to be saved? What's the story? What's going on here? It is anti-Semitism. It is, and this word is used so abused today, racism. It is racism, folks. And the ones who yell racist the most are the most guilty. They're the ones that accuse the Jews today of evil. But all Israel is going to be saved. You do not have the right to say, well, no, but it's not real. No, it's not up for you or me to decide how Jehovah is going to judge between cattle and cattle in Ezekiel 34. That is not our job. He says he's going to judge between the fat and the lean concerning the people of Israel. So all of them, when it says all Israel shall be saved, every Israelite, there's no exception. They're going to be, this word saved. What it's talking about is gathered from out of every nation, kindred, and tongue, exactly as written in Ezekiel 34. Verse 11, for thus saith Jehovah, not Jesus, or Adonai, Jehovah. Look, I, even I, will search out my sheep and seek them out, as a shepherd seeks out his flock. Listen carefully. The day that he is among his sheep, the day that he seeks them out, is the day when Jehovah's wrath begins, the great tribulation. That are scattered, so I will seek out my sheep and will deliver them out of all the places where they have been scattered. When? In the cloudy and dark day, during the great tribulation. He's going to gather them out. All Israel, every Israelite. You have Israelite blood in you, they're going to come after you and find you. You're going to say, come on back. Remember Lot's wife. And I will bring them out from the people and gather them from out of all the countries, and will bring them back into their own land and feed them upon the mountains of Israel, by the rivers and all the inhabited places of the country. You see, he says, I will seek that which was lost and bring back again which was driven away, and will bind up which was broken, and I will strengthen that which was sick, and I will destroy the fat and the strong, and will feed them with judgment. So all of them, every Israelite, is going to be saved out of the Gentiles. And then, once they're all in that land, he's going to judge between the fat and the lean. That is not our problem. That is not our problem. That's going to be his to do. And he goes and explains how he's going to do this. And then he says he's going to set up one shepherd over them. And I want to show you something, folks. This is so good. This is so good. It says, even my servant David shall feed them, and he will be their shepherd. I, Jehovah, will be their Elohim, and my servant David a prince, a captain among them. And I, Jehovah, have spoken it. So let's go to, before I close, let's go to the Orthodox Jewish Bible. I think it's in this one. I forgot the... I might have to go... Okay, here we go. Verse 23, and I will set up a rohe echad over them, and he shall tend them as a rohe, even Avdi David. And he shall feed them, and he shall be their roeh. And I, Hashem, will be their Elohim, and Avdi David Moshiach, a Nazi among them, I, Hashem, have spoken. Did you get that? The implication here is son of David, Moshiach, you see. All right? This is how all Israel is going to be saved. And when Paul says all Israel is going to be saved, you had better believe it. You had better believe it. So, you perverters of the gospel, are you going to go and join up with the armies of this world when Messiah comes to fight against him and call him the Antichrist? Is that what you're going to do? You're going to take up arms against him? Because you and your pride, your racist pride against Israel, want to destroy, to be the destroyer, the son of Apollyon? You better think about what you believe in, and you better think about who you follow today. Because tomorrow, Yehoshua, Israel's Messiah, is going to rule the whole world from Jerusalem, from Jerusalem, from Mount Zion. You must be a Zionist in order to be grafted into among the branches. You must be a Zionist. Period.